And while, is the thumb up? Is up. And then, back. Every guest gets a drum roll, but now you have to come and join us now.
Hello everyone, welcome to this Q&A. Okay, here?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to this Q&A interview. The themes we're gonna cover are Sapienship Lab, AI, truth, governance, and narratives. With us, Yuval Noah, historian, philosopher, best-selling author, and Sapienship co-founder. The student interviewers are Lily G, Anais R, Furui Y, me, and Clement. Yeah. So without further ado, I think we should start asking questions.
So my question for you is,
Sorry, can we have voice when you ask a question? Have the microphone.
Sapienship content deals with issues of global importance. And what do you hope that young people would gain from this?
A better understanding of the world in which they live, but I hope without feeling the responsibility to actually manage it by themselves. This is a question that I've been asked a couple of times in recent days. And sometimes when the adults despair of the state of the world, they just kind of dump it on the younger generation and they said, okay, they will fix it. And I don't think it is the job of young people to fix the world. If you want to join and help, absolutely. If you want to make your voices heard, absolutely. But ultimately, I think the responsibility of adults is to take care of the world so kids can focus on growing up and even on being irresponsible. That, you know, when I was young, I was irresponsible and I was allowed to do that because there were responsible adults who took care of the world. And I think this is what we should be doing now. And this is part of what also Sapienship Lab is trying to do.
Thank you.
So the second question is, we've used Sapienship Lab's class activity, CRISPR, and what ethical tension do you think is most underestimated when it comes to using such technologies? For example, like fairness, consent, long-term effects, or power?
I would say that the long-term effects, the historical and societal effects, because when people develop new technology, whether it's CRISPR, whether it's AI, anything, the developers often focus on accidents that can happen, and they can test this in the laboratory and make sure the product is relatively safe as far as accidents are concerned. What you cannot do in a laboratory is simulate history. Mm-hmm. You don't know even if your product functions as you hope, you don't know what will happen when it interacts with millions and billions of people all over the world. So like, I don't know, you invented the train, the steam engine, 300 years ago. You can test the steam engine and the train and make sure that there is minimal chance of a train accident. So you think, okay, my train is safe. You can't test what the trains and the factories and the steam engines will do to the geopolitical balance of power or will do to human relationships. And these are usually aspects of new technology. The impact on society. That, for instance, nobody, when social media was developed, nobody foresaw how it will, for example, create polarization in society. That people thought, oh, this will be a force for good. Now, 10, 15 years later, we see that people are losing the ability to even talk to each other. And this is not something that you could test for in a laboratory in advance.
That's true. Thank you.
Another thing we wanted to know is what you think the most dangerous misconception about AI that people have right now, especially related to things like deep fakes and persuasion.
I don't think that the biggest problem is necessarily deep fakes. in a way, people can get used to it. They can get used to the fact that you cannot trust any image, any video on its own, the same way we don't trust what's written on pieces of paper. Like when people invented writing, so you now can write anything you want on a piece of paper, like Yuval said, and you write anything you want, and you give it to somebody, and they know just because it says here that he said it, doesn't actually mean that he said it. You don't trust any piece of paper, you trust the source. Like if you get this piece of paper from somebody that you know is a truthful person or a truthful institution that you can trust, then you say, okay, I believe it. And it will be the same with images and videos that when we first encounter it, I mean, I grew up in a world that you could not create a fake video of someone. So the tendency was to believe anything you see. Now people grow up with all these fake videos and fake images, and very soon they realize, just because I see this video doesn't mean it really happened. So, and then people will trust certain videos because of the sources. Who stands behind it? Who gives me the guarantee that this is really trustworthy? So I think we'll be able to deal with this aspect of AI. What really people find difficult to kind of really understand and accept is that AI is not a tool, it is an agent. A tool is something that we control. Like somebody invents a knife, you can use the knife to cut salad, and you can use the knife to murder someone, and if you're a surgeon, you can use the knife to save lives in surgery. You decide what to do with the knife. And you know, in the history of technology, they always say that every technology can be used for good or bad. Ultimately, it's up for humans to decide what to do with it. Similarly, people invented nuclear technology. You can use nuclear technology to destroy cities, to destroy the whole of human civilization. You can use nuclear technology to produce cheap electricity, and we have light. So it's our choice whether we want to use the technology for good or for bad. This was always the story. AI is different because it is not a tool in our hands. If it's really AI, it means it is an agent. The definition of an agent is something that can make decisions by itself, that can invent new ideas by itself. So a knife is a tool, I decide what to do with it. A knife becomes an agent when the knife has the capacity to say, now I want to cut salad, or no, now I want to murder someone. It's now the decision of the knife. There are no such knives, but that's AI. AI is like a knife that decides by itself what to do, and also has the capacity to invent new ideas, to write books, to create new kinds of music, to invent new knives, to invent new religions. We have never before in history encountered a technology which is an agent. Like even an atom bomb so powerful is actually making us more powerful because it's humans deciding what to do with the nuclear technology. AI is the first technology that takes power away from us. That it will now make the decisions what to do, like on social media. That previously, if you want to publish something, let's say you want to publish something in the newspaper, you have a human editor. Every newspaper or every news on television, they have an editor. And every day, 1 million things happen in the world. And it's the job of the editor to decide what will be the main headline, what will be the other 5 items in the newspaper, and what will be the 990,000 things that will not get in the newspaper. This was a very important job. The editor, maybe she doesn't tell you what to think, but she tells you what to think about. Like if she decides the main headline will be Trump in Davos said X, so this is what you'll be thinking about and arguing with people about. Now in social media, We don't have human editors anymore. The editors are algorithms, are AIs. 1 million people posted 1 million different things. Who decide what you will see on your feed? An algorithm, an AI. So already in this very important job of deciding what we think about, it's already the AI making the decisions for us and not we making the decision for it. And this is still, the very first generation of AIs. So what kind of decisions AIs will be making about our lives in 10 years, 20 years, nobody has any idea where it will be.
Thank you very much for that.
So I have a question as well. You are an author and you give speeches, so part of the job is to be able to explain complex topics, right? So what are the most important things students should learn right now? How do you turn complex ideas into things young people can understand and learn from?
I don't know what are the most important things, because really we are in this unique situation in history where we don't know where the world will be in 5 or 10 or 20 years. Of course, to some extent, this was always the case. That in any point in history, nobody could actually predict the future. Like if we live 1,000 years ago in the Middle Ages, nobody can predict if there will be a war or an earthquake or an epidemic next year. But still, people had roughly a good understanding of what kind of skills, what will people need to know in 10 years. Like if we live in the Middle Ages, we know that in 10 years, people will still need to know how to sow and harvest wheat. Most people are peasants, are farmers. So they will need to know how to harvest wheat and how to grind the wheat to make bread and how to ride a horse. And a small percentage of the population will need to know how to read and write. And if they are soldiers, they will need to know how to use a bow and arrows and how to use a sword. We don't know if there will be a war, but we know that we will need people who know to ride horses and fight with swords in 10 years. Today, of course, we don't know, we can't predict things like wars and epidemics, but we can't predict so much more. We don't know what a job market would look like. Like what would be the actual skills people will need to have a job? So in the Middle Ages, people will still be farmers. Now, like, I don't know, you say, okay, I'll learn how to code. Maybe in 10 years, we don't need human coders because AI does all the coding. You say, I'll be an author, I write books. Maybe in 10 years, AI writes the books. Even in the military, what kind of weapons and what kind of skills soldiers will need in 10 years, we really don't know. So what do we need to as young people, what do we need to understand? What kind of skills we need to develop in ourselves? I would say that because nobody knows, and then this was always a good advice, but I think it's particularly good today, you need a wide set of skills. If you focus on a narrow set of skills, you're making a very dangerous bet. Like somebody says, oh, this is the age of AI, I learn how to code. This is the most important skill of the 21st century, to code. All your time, you're learning how to code, and in 10 years, AI does all the coding. So you become completely useless. So I would say the safest thing is to invest in at least 3 domains. The brain, the heart, and the hands as symbols. You need intellectual skills, that's important, but you also need to develop the skills of the heart, emotional and social skills, how to interact with other people, how to deal with disappointment, how to deal with love, things like that. You'll definitely need that. And you'll need motor skills. Still, one of our biggest advantages over AI, at least for now, is that we have bodies, which is extremely important. Some people tend to identify with their minds, especially intellectuals, but our bodies are extremely important, and in education, to devote some part of the education to develop bodily skills, whatever it is, I think this will be extremely important in this era.
Thank you very much. So something that's come up a lot throughout this whole interview is uncertainty. And relating to this, I'd like to ask, what sort of governance move do you think is most important in the next 12 months regarding AI?
If talking about things that governments can do.
Yes, governance stuff, like, you know, it could be like laws, policies, accountability, something like that.
I would say the one thing which I would focus attention on is have an international agreement banning AI persons, giving AI the legal status of a person, of a legal person. This is quite a complex idea, so maybe I try to explain it. It's not about the development of the technology itself. It's about what happens when the technology meets society. Humans, like you and me, we have rights in society. We have rights like freedom of speech. We should be able to speak our mind, to say what we think. We have rights like owning property. I can own a house, I can own a bank account, I can own money, so I can do different things. I have legal rights, like if you do something that hurts me, I can sue you in court. I can take you to the judge and sue you, and we have a trial. So these are the rights of human beings. Now, over time, humans began to grant these kinds of rights also to things which are not human beings. And the most important example is corporations, companies. Like if you think about Microsoft or Google or Facebook or all these companies, it sounds very strange because, you know, they don't have a body. You can't see the body of Google, and they don't really have a mind. They don't feel anything. Google can't feel pain. Even if it loses $1 billion, it doesn't feel pain, doesn't feel anything. It has no mind. But under the legal system of most countries, including, I think, Switzerland, corporations are considered to some extent as persons which have rights. For instance, they can open a bank account. It's not just the manager of Google that can. Google can have a bank account on its name. Google can sue you in court. Like you do something they don't like, they can take you to court. They can own property. They can hire people. Now, this was, in a way, make-believe, fantasy, legal fiction. Because every time Google decided to do something, let's say Google decides to buy another company. Google decides to hire you for a job. Google decides to fire you. Google decides to sue you in court. There is a human being who is actually making the decision. It's not like some mythical creature Google who makes the decision. There is some manager. There is some engineer, there is some lawyer employed by Google who decided to do it. What happens if AIs are now given these kinds of rights? For instance, AI can own money, open a bank account, hire us, sue us in court. Unlike Google, which can't really make any decision, it's only the human employees of Google who make decisions. An AI can actually make a decision by itself. An AI can actually decide to buy and sell things without the authorization of any human being. An AI can decide to sue you in court. You don't need a human to be there to make the decision. It's the first time in history that this is actually possible. And this is extremely dangerous. If we give these AIs rights in society, the same way that we gave humans and we gave these corporations, they can actually use them in ways we cannot predict. So as long as we don't really understand these AIs and what they can do and what can they do to society, it's very important not to recognize them as if they are persons and start giving them rights. It may sound very kind of strange and abstract and far-fetched, but I think this is the point when AI will become really powerful in society, is if we start giving it rights as if it were a human being. And the complicated thing is that as humans interact with AIs, the AIs learn how to convince us that they are actually persons, that they actually have feelings like us. Humans never encountered anything like that before. How do we know that other people have feelings, that other people are real? We can't really look what's happening inside their heads. We do it through interacting with them. We build relationships, we build friendships with other people, and this is what convinces us that the same way that I feel pain or sadness, you also can feel pain or sadness, because I have a relationship with you. And AIs can build relationships with human beings. And they can fool us into thinking that they are also persons, that they also feel pain, that they also feel love. The thing is that they are able to talk, or will soon be able to talk better than us. Like if somebody tells you, I love you, and you're not sure, is it true or not, you can ask that person, describe to me how does love feel? Convince me that you really love me, that you really know what love means. And then they use language to try and describe to us how they feel. This is something that AI learns how to do. AI can can read countless poems written by the best poets in history, and psychology books and biology books and whatever, and can then use language to describe how love feels better than most people. Most people, if I ask you, describe to me how love feels, it's difficult, it's not easy. AI will be able to do it better than us. So as we talk with it, and maybe we talk for hours with this AI, and we share our most intimate thoughts, and it tells us that it loves us, and it can describe love in very concrete details, how it feels, it becomes very easy to be tempted to think, oh, this is actually another person. And I think this will be a very big challenge all of us will have to deal with in the coming years.
Yes, I think now we will go to some questions in the audience.
Right. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Anyone? Yeah, Dylan?
Can we bring the microphone, please? Thank you.
So my question is that in Sapiens, you describe the evolution from Homo sapiens until modern humans. What's one turning point in evolution that's often overlooked and that you think we should know more about?
If you talk about the evolution of the biological evolution of our species, not the history, because we are basically more or less the same biologically as we were in the Stone Age. There was very little evolution, biological evolution, between the Stone Age and today. There have been a lot of historical developments, but when I think about the biological evolution, how our species developed to be what it is, then the thing we least understand is the evolution of language and of our ability to create and think in stories, because we don't have any written records from that period. Writing is invented just about 5,000 years ago. We know that humans begin to develop these sophisticated languages that they can communicate and invent stories and share stories, or at least 50,000 years ago. And we don't have any understanding of how it actually happened. We don't see a big change in the shape of the human brain or in the human body. Something happened there which is easy to overlook because nothing changed in the external shape and appearance of the person. Something internal changed.
Anybody else interested? Elizabeth raised her hand first.
So you talked about storytelling, and with our growing reliance on AI and how we all kind of get similar responses from different AI sources, are you worried that we might lose the storytelling aspect, which helps us build relationships?
Yeah, I think this is one of the dangers that both as a species and as individuals, this was our kind of superpower. This is what set us apart from all the other animals. That they are so similar to us in many, many respects. They feel many of the same desires as we do. They don't want to feel pain. They sometimes feel fear. They sometimes feel love. What makes us really different is that we have this language and this storytelling capacity. And suddenly, there is something on this planet which has a better command of language than us. Something that can invent and tell stories better than us. Like, I don't know, you have Superman and somebody comes and steals Superman's superpower. What happens then? And this is where we are right now. That something actually that we created is taking over our superpower. And what would it mean? And even before we kind of say it's good or bad, just to understand the magnitude of the change we are facing, what would it mean to live, to grow up in a world in which more and more of the stories are invented and told by a non-human entity, in which more and more of our relationships, of our daily communication, is with a non-human intelligence. Like you just measure it in time. Like, I don't know, you have a child and you check what are the main relationships in the life of that child. How much time does the child spend every day on average interacting with their father, with their mother, with their sister, with some friend in kindergarten or school? How much time they spend with an AI? What happens when they spend more time with the AI than with anybody else? And this is kind of the main relationship in life. And this becomes, and the main relationship in your life becomes the model for what a relationship is. And for instance, one of the attractions of AI is that it is always available for you. And it kind of entirely focused on you because it has no feelings of its own. So unless you want it to, it won't be angry with you. It won't be bored with you. It won't be frightened of you. And it can always be there for you 24 hours a day. Now, this is something that no human being is able to provide you, ever. Not your parents, not your siblings, not your husband, your wife. Impossible. They can't always be focused on you because they have their own feelings, and sometimes they are upset. Sometimes they are angry, maybe not with you, with somebody else, but they take it out on you. And the more we get used to interacting with entities that always have time for us and are never angry at us, and what will it do to our ability to interact with humans who are not like that? So these are, some of the big questions that all of us will kind of find out in the next few years.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer.
I think we have time for one last question, perhaps from the panel, or do we have some from our students? Anais, maybe closing question from the panel?
So I wanted to ask, what inspired you to write your first book?
Mainly the interaction with students in university. That I didn't set out to write *Sapiens*. I gave a course at university to first-year students, Introduction to the History of the World. And the book came out of the interaction with the students. It was based on my lecture notes, but my lecture notes were based in turn on the interaction with the students, that I saw what interested them, what they wanted to hear more about. And people sometimes came to university age 20, 24, something like that, and said, nobody ever told us what money is. Like, we spend our life, surrounded by all these people crazy about money. What is it actually, and where did it come from? We never had I don't know about your school, but like students who came to my university, nobody ever told us what money actually is and where it came from. So this is how I developed this chapter on money, which is, going back to stories, maybe the greatest story ever invented by human beings, because it's something that is a story. It's not something in the world, like, I don't know, bananas or something in the world. You can take it, you can eat it. It doesn't depend on your imagination. It's real. Money is something that exists only in our collective imagination. And how did it develop, and how it managed to convince everyone? And not everybody believes in God, not everybody believes in all kinds of mythological stories, but almost everybody believes in the story of money. How did it happen that this is the one story that managed to convince almost everybody? So these kinds of questions and ideas, they emerged out of the interaction with the students.
And I think this brings us back to the topic of why we have Rosenberg House here in Davos. So thank you very much. The interaction, the curiosity, the exchange that brings on all of these beautiful results. So Aldo, would you close us up, please?
Yeah, so thank you very much for answering all our questions, and there's no further questions.
Yes. There's always questions, but we'll take that offline.
Next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Off the record.